Steam and Valve have been ubiquitous in the PC gaming space. Personally, it's my favorite storefront to in fact buy my games. The majority of my library is on Steam as well, and I feel that they've always been a pro-consumer advocate for everybody else in the space. A good example of what to do and what not to do. The thing is though, Valve recently also announced the Steam Machine, which should be coming out within the next year in 2026. While everybody's concerned about the price, I've noticed a couple of things happening as well. It turns out that by what I've noticed that we're going to be talking about today, that the Steam Machine and Valve may be the last bastion of you owning any sort of physical computing power in your own home or even by playing your own games. And it turns out that Microsoft and Nvidia and basically every other tech company is teaming up to try and take Valve down. You see, all of this starts because of an article that came out recently by WCCF Tech stating this: Microsoft executives rage and Google resorts to firing its procurement head as an all-out war for memory products breaks out. That's right, the CEO drama is going to get incredibly spicy. We are seeing executives being fired. We are seeing other new jobs being literally created by Microsoft and other companies to be placed into Korea specifically to make sure that they can procure enough RAM from Samsung, SK Hynix, and even other companies like Micron as well. The big three, the RAM mafia, if you will, of video games and compute hardware in general. But the thing is, so many more details are being missed, so let's go over the article and see what actually happened. The ongoing shortage of memory products is now forcing tech behemoths, including Microsoft, Google, and Meta, to station their procurement executives within South Korea as protracted negotiations with Samsung and SK Hynix continue. Even so, Google is now resorting to punitive measures to retaliate against executives who lacked the foresight to sign long-term agreements, LTAs, with major memory solutions providers. Watching companies like Google and Microsoft literally lose their minds about this entire thing really is absurd, and seeing the fact that punitive measures are in fact happening because of this really goes to show that these companies are doing everything they can to try and either catch up or constantly inflate the bubble of trying to buy the HBMs and hardware needed to run these AI data centers. And this gets even crazier because Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron are the only top 3 producers of RAM on the entire planet. And even though there are some smaller ones as well, the amount that they produce is so small comparatively that it's nowhere even close. And the thing is, I've seen really ridiculous statements happen online as well. People saying things like, oh, this won't impact console gaming. This won't impact my video games. Honey, you've got a big storm coming. Because even according to Yahoo Finance, Samsung is reportedly raising DDR5 RAM prices by 100% with no stock left. Because according to analyst Jukan on X, Samsung has now raised the contract price of its DDR5 RAM by more than 100%, increasing the cost to $19.50 per unit. Earlier this year, the price was around $7, making this a massive spike. And I want to be clear about what was just said. They didn't state consumer price. No, they stated contract price, which means these are B2B contracts that were done between Samsung and other negotiating factors. Companies like PlayStation that uses Samsung RAM in their PS5, and also every other company that has to use RAM in their technology to in fact create their products and make them function in the first place. In fact, Nintendo themselves saw a 14 billion with a B loss in value because of the memory chip shortage, especially due to the fact that Nvidia makes the APUs for the Switch too. This is going to impact everyone across every single scope and every single kind of product that uses RAM in some capacity. No one is going to be spared, and I have to make that incredibly clear because for some reason, people think that even AMD isn't a part of this, when in fact they are. The article by WCCF Tech continues saying, according to a new report out of South Korea, Microsoft executives recently visited the headquarters of SK Hynix to hash out a new memory-focused LTA. Long-term agreement, by the way. You're catching on? Good. However, when informed that it would be difficult to supply memory products under the conditions demanded by Microsoft, one of the Redmond Giants executives stormed out of the meeting in anger. As the HBM production capacity at Samsung and SK Hynix is already running at full steam, AI hyperscalers such as Microsoft, Google, and Meta are now placing open-ended memory-related orders accepting any HBM volume at any price. So now we're seeing Google literally fire executives simply because they didn't have the foresight to go through and get LTAs or long-term agreements from SK Hynix and Samsung. We're also seeing Microsoft executives storm out of the actual offices as well of SK Hynix because they're not getting enough memory, and then coming back saying, look, we're going to buy whatever you got at whatever price you want, whatever you need, whatever you can produce. That is absolutely insane. These companies like Google, Meta, Microsoft, and etc. are dumping truckloads of money into these manufacturers like Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron to get all of this memory. The problem, though, is the fact that they're focusing on AI so heavily isn't the issue. The real issue is what they're actually doing with these products. In fact, it's not just about what's happening with the hardware, but what's going on in the back end with all the deals happening specifically. And we'll talk about that now too, because back in September of 2025, we saw NVIDIA have a strategic partnership with OpenAI directly to announce 10 gigawatts of NVIDIA systems and chips to OpenAI. And you know what? I'm going to tell you this right now. If you're thinking about saying, you know what, well, screw NVIDIA, I'm going to go AMD. It turns out that a little bit later in October 6th of 2025, AMD and OpenAI announced a strategic partnership to deploy 6 gigawatts of AMD GPUs, basically doing the exact same thing that NVIDIA does. Like I've always stated, AMD is in fact NVIDIA's cousin, unable to do anything on their own and simply follow in their family's footsteps. Oh, you didn't know that Lisa Su and Jensen Huang are actually cousins? Now you know. And then to make things even more strange, Microsoft also created a next chapter of OpenAI partnership, even though Microsoft themselves have their own AI called Copilot. But back in October, it turns out that Microsoft has now a 27% stake into OpenAI as well. So now that we've got the baseline, we're seeing Microsoft and many other companies go around to these RAM manufacturers, the RAM cabal, might I say, and try to get as many pieces of hardware that they possibly can. At the same time, AMD and NVIDIA are also investing billions of dollars into OpenAI, basically raising the floor of pricing because these companies can outspend you as a customer and consumer at every conceivable sense. And with all of this put together with the beginning stages of what's been happening in this video and how this is all going to impact Valve and Steam, we're looking at the fact that all of these companies, basically AMD, NVIDIA, and even Microsoft, all working together with OpenAI to go through and work with the RAM cabal, basically, and get as much hardware as they possibly can to run their data servers and centers. The problem, though, is what's actually happening with all of this hardware in the first place. And the thing is, how is this going to impact you as a customer and consumer, especially for Valve and Steam, who want to release their hardware next year? But you know what? Don't worry about what's coming out of my mouth. Here's Satya Nadella telling you himself that they're just sitting on all of this hardware doing nothing with it. No, I'm not kidding.
The biggest issue we are now having is not a compute glut, but it's a power. And it's sort of the ability to get the builds done fast enough close to power. So if you can't do that, you may actually have a bunch of chips sitting in inventory that I can't plug in. In fact, that is my problem today, right? It's not a supply issue of chips. It's actually the fact that I don't have warm shells to plug into.
So wait, hold on. Right from Satya Nadella's own mouth, he literally said the problem he has isn't about actually using the compute services that he has right now and the hardware he has from all those buyouts. The problem that he has right now is a power one. It's the fact he doesn't have warm racks to even plug them into. So he's literally sitting on warehouses full of just actual RAM, chips, GPUs, and everything else to run AI, but he's unable to do it simply because we don't have the infrastructure to run all that kind of power. You gotta love it. Electricity bill increasing because of this. Water poisoned because of this. Ecological disasters, absolutely. All because these companies want to go through and hoard RAM on their own in order to go ahead and be the first ones out the gate to make the most money or be the one to plant their flag in AI. Even though we've exposed that these companies are all working together, paying OpenAI as well, while OpenAI themselves purchased 40% of all the wafers on the planet in order to hold hold them and do nothing. By the way, RAM wafers are unprocessed. They can't even do anything with those wafers at all until they are in fact processed by Samsung or SK Hynix or even Micron. So literally just sitting there and doing nothing with it in their own warehouses. In fact, Ed Zetron on Twitter did a huge breakdown of what's actually happening with Nvidia and their hardware and all the actual RAM on the planet being used by AI. Here's just one excerpt to talk about it. Ed Zetron on Twitter said this: based on modeling out its last 3 quarters of sales, Nvidia appears to have shipped around 4 gigawatts of IT load. Yet I cannot find compelling evidence that even 1 gigawatt has come online. It's likely there are millions of GPUs in warehouses waiting to be installed. And in fact, Ed is absolutely correct because Satya Nadella even confirmed it in that interview as well. This is going to be an insane thing happening right now in the gaming space, and also just everything that we do with technology in the first place. We're watching multi-billion and trillion-dollar corporations trade money between each other, literally just doing that all day long, not actually making any money, and watching it flow in a circular pattern, inflating a bubble that is absolutely going to burst. In fact, it's gotten so bad right now because of these companies hoarding all this technology, all this RAM, all these GPUs, and not putting them online because we don't have the infrastructure to do anything with in the first place. Companies are now selling SODIMM to DIMM adapters. That's right. Take your laptop DDR5 RAM, put it into an adapter, and then plug it into your PC to make that thing run in the first fucking place. Oh, do you want to go even further? How about you solder your own chiplets onto the RAM itself? Isn't that fun, guys? Talk about pure DIY in the best possible case scenario, you know what I mean? And all of this is exactly why we're having such major issues with Valve and Steam. These companies do not want you to have any compute hardware at all. They want you to either pay out the nose for it because they're paying a bunch of money for it too, and they want to raise the floor of pricing and then force you into their actual online structures of cloud streaming and services. That is why all of this is happening. It's not about providing you a good AI solution. It's about using that AI solution to go through and solve the problem that they made themselves, and Valve is literally standing in their way because they're trying to offer you as a customer and consumer in today's day and age an actual device or multiple devices that give you good compute performance that you can use on your own, because literally the plan of Nvidia and Microsoft is to force you into subscription-based services. We talked about this before, where Nvidia is now creating a 100-hour limit per month, and if you go over that limit, they'll charge you an exponentially high amount of pricing for using their cloud services for GeForce Now. Microsoft raised the price of their Game Pass services and then also added cloud streaming to all those service tiers as well. In fact, things are going to get even worse for the actual consumer and customer and even other corporations like Nintendo and PlayStation, simply because, according to videocards.com, board channels saying AMD and Nvidia GPU price hikes may reach AIB cards in January through February of 2026. With Daniel Romero saying this: AMD and Nvidia are expected to raise graphics card prices in Q1 of 2026 with a potential increase of 10 to 20%. AMD has already notified partners of a $10 price increase per 8 gigabytes of VRAM. Samsung and SK Hynix and Micron have allocated roughly 18 to 20% of DRAM capacity to HBM, tightening supply for conventional memory. As a result, DRAM contract prices are up 170% year over year. Nvidia is also planning to cut discrete gaming GPU production by 30 to 40% in the first half of 2026. So we're seeing GPU prices increase. We're seeing RAM become almost impossible to in fact purchase at a decent price. We're seeing solutions for RAM as well, which is basically just solder it yourself or use a SODIMM to DIMM converter to use the actual RAM on your PC. And then we're also seeing all these other price hikes in the contracts between all these other companies and corporations and the RAM cabal, basically stopping everyone in their tracks and increasing the contract price between companies by 100% or even 170%. All of that all of that simply for Nvidia to go through and on Christmas fucking Eve to have this actual abomination of AI tweet being pushed around online saying this: lights and bright spirits are high, innovation reaching the sky. To every gamer, builder, developer too, happy holidays from Nvidia to you. Getting absolutely completely ratioed while this entire thing in fact happened. Nvidia being one of the main culprits in this entire thing, while also having AMD being a culprit as well, and Microsoft being a part of it too. These companies are doing, again, everything to stop you from owning proper compute power and forcing you into their actual subservices, like I said before. And oh, remember the entire time everybody was making fun about this is an Xbox, everything is an Xbox? All the pundits on video games talking about, well, when everything is an Xbox, nothing is. You lost your identity. It turns out that Microsoft has been playing the long game from the very beginning. Their entire plan wasn't about my console sales or losing the console war. Their entire plan is understanding what AI is going to do in the future of video games and then completely restrict you into having anything at all, while at the same time stopping you from owning any compute power unless you pay an exorbitant price, and then forcing you into their sub-services, giving you the solution for a problem that they in fact helped create. It wasn't about everything is an Xbox to stop PlayStation. No, it's about everything is an Xbox simply to give you the opportunity to keep subbing for their services, whether it's on your phone, on a tablet, on a handheld PC, or anything else that you can access it onto as well. We're not talking about console sales anymore, folks. We're not talking about compute performance anymore, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about these companies and corporations literally giving you the poison at the same time trying to offer you the cure. In fact, ArkyWorks on Twitter said this: Half-Life 3 got delayed and 8GB RAM are doubled the prices because of clankers. Thanks, Nvidia. Yes, absolutely yes. Arky is totally correct. The Steam Machine will probably have an exorbitant price of $700 or more simply because of Nvidia's insane greed. The fact that we're seeing this happen live in front of you right now is in fact the true space. On top of that, Microsoft hoarding all those chiplets and GPUs, causing this to happen in the first place. And then to make matters worse, AMD's direct involvement into OpenAI as well, offering 6 gigawatts of compute to Nvidia's 10, while at the same time also making contracted agreements with Microsoft, with PlayStation to produce the next set of consoles for next generation. Ladies and gentlemen, you're looking at $1,000 consoles probably next gen, and it's going to be insane if it actually happens. With all of this happening, Valve literally walking around and saying, hey, we want to offer people a Linux device for a Steam machine, and then AMD saying, guess what? Now you got to pay more money. Samsung saying, guess what? Contract prices, they went up too. Yesterday's price is not today's price. And all of these companies and their greed is screwing you as a customer and consumer. And literally for some reason, Valve doing nothing but just simply existing, being the only thing standing in the way of the insane greed of all these companies and corporations. Because if the Steam Machine comes out at a decent price, that will be the one set of proper compute power available to a customer and consumer in an APU format, to have that ability to avoid having to use those sub-services and subscriptions, which is everything that these companies want you to do in the first place. It's amazing how Gabe just exists and literally sets the entire industry on fire. And that really is the biggest issue of all of this. Valve is not doing this out of the goodness of their hearts. They're making the Steam Machine because they've seen exactly what's going to be happening with the gaming space. And the Steam Machine could be the one way you as a customer and consumer actually own proper power in computing. Not by going on and spending $3,000 on a PC that performs slightly better than what consoles normally do because of the cost of RAM in the gaming industry, and even the cost of RAM in general because of these companies hoarding all of this actual technology and doing nothing with it because they don't have the actual infrastructure to even turn the fucking thing on. But the fact that we are sitting here watching in real time as these companies are trying to strip away every possible idea of ownership from you as a customer and consumer in the hardware space is a more disturbing thing to see. Valve could go out and put out the Steam Machine at a competitive product, but I think it's going to be a fool's errand to think that you're not going to be seeing a price increase on consoles for next generation, or even harder for next generation as well. My bet for next generation is you're going to see a $1,000 Xbox Magnus console, and probably literally an $800 PlayStation 6, mostly because of the contract negotiations, or LTAs, for Samsung and SK Hynix on these actual consoles, and the amount of money being dumped into OpenAI. But I think the craziest part about all of this isn't just the fact that the prices are going up, isn't just the fact that Valve is totally getting over on a consistent basis, which then of course screws you over as a customer and consumer as well. I think the real part about all of this is basically just this picture right here. This one right here. You see that? Even though it's a meme, right? Even though it is literally a meme, you're seeing the majority of big tech stand together in a parking lot talking with all the AI people as well. And the one guy who's not there is Gabe Newell. The absolute pure greed of these companies and corporations is honestly shocking across the board. And watching companies like Microsoft and Nvidia literally work in tandem to go ahead and invest all this money into OpenAI, screwing you over as a customer and consumer, making it harder for competition, creating an actual monopoly in the AI space as well, really doesn't help you or benefit you at all. Once again, we're sitting back saying, Lord Gaben, you're our only hope. Oh, and just to make things pretty abundantly clear, I want to show you guys a clip from Linus Tech Tips, because one of the things I've noticed is you're going to be seeing apologists for price increases as well. In fact, here's Linus talking about how the price increases really aren't that bad.
It's just not...
It's more that I wish people were a little bit more appreciative of the work that goes into keeping these things as affordable as they are. We did that recent tour of Kioxia, their fab.
It is, dude, anytime you see a fab at all, it's just like, dude, how the hell do I buy one of these things for the amount of dollars that I get it for? It's crazy.
It's amazing. And so so basically what I'm doing is I'm coming fresh off of the actual, like, literal miracle, like the wonder of the world that it is that we can make a microprocessor at all. And then I'm going over into, like, I'm so angry that the $500 computer is now $700 when a $500 computer is a miracle in the first place, and so is a $700 computer.
That doesn't mean you can't be annoyed about constant extreme collusion and all these other things going on. But it is still, it is still neat that our hobby is surprisingly cheap.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Get ready for Linus Shill Tips Crypto 2.0 Electric Boogaloo NFT Part 2, baby. Because these dudes are going to be going around and still shilling for these companies and corporations. So be on guard, be alert, and be prepared to see all this kind of stuff happening. Because the moment you're going to see all those other big YouTubers start talking about how great cloud gaming is, how great AI computing is, and how fantastically cheap everything has to be, while going around and saying how Valve Steam Machine is totally underpowered, is going to be interesting to watch and see. Bookmark it. You know it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. That's why I'm saying it's going to happen. All these companies don't want you to have anything, and they'll go around and they'll shove money in anybody's pocket to make sure that you get the message they want you to hear. But you know what? Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments section down below. Do you think Valve is effectively with the Steam Machine and what's going on in the gaming industry? Do you think the Steam Machine could be the only spot where you'll have proper compute performance? And what do you think about Microsoft and Nvidia basically just working together to screw you as a customer and consumer and strip everything away from you as well? Oh, by the way, don't forget to throw AMD in that bunch too. Yeah, they're not safe either. But you know what? If you want to see more of this kind of content, though, more PC port reviews, gaming news, Steam Deck videos, fanboy content, and hot takes in the gaming industry like this, subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 101K. I never thought I'd ever say those words, and I really do appreciate everything you guys have actually done, even by spending a few minutes with me here on this channel. I really do appreciate it. Now, if you want Discord access or most during live streams, become a YouTube member. It's as low as $1. If you don't want to spend the buck, don't sweat it. Just come on down Saturday nights, 8:45 p.m. Eastern, live right here on the channel as I wear a banana suit and stream to 800 people and get insulted with AITTS. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. Saturday nights, 8:45 p.m. Eastern, live right here on the channel. Come on down. You'll have a great time. With all that being said, though, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you have a great one, and I'll see you gooners next time. Peace!